Thanks, Bob, for doing this. I really appreciate it. Just by way of introduction, the executive chat we're going to have now is with Bobby Williams, who I've known for longer than either of us want to admit.
That's true.
We first met when we served on the board of Red Cross in New Jersey, and Bob has served and worked with numerous charities throughout Bergen County, which we're going to ask him to talk about in a moment. And also he is owner and I guess partner with Kanebridge Corporation, which is a company that works in the building trades industry. So Bob, welcome. Thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks, George.
So one of the things that we usually start these discussions with is what we call kind of taking your temperature. So we're asking people, and we've been saying this to our clients and to other nonprofits, is that when you get in conversations with key individuals in your institution's life, board members or key donors or just friends of the institution, you ask them how they're doing, and you try to kind of drill down a little bit on how they're actually doing given this time of COVID-19. So let me start with you, asking you how are you doing? How's Carol doing? Your family?
Well, we're doing quite well. I mean, it's not a pleasant time, but we're holding up quite well. As far as I'm concerned, my business, we have been able to work remotely for the last 10 years, and we've been doing that. So being locked at home was not a challenge for us or my company. But, it is a challenge not being able to see our friends. Our daughter is a veterinarian, and she is constantly in contact with the public. So our ability to get together with her is somewhat limited, or quite limited. Carol's doing quite well, but we're all getting a little bit tired of being locked into a small circle. But that's the reality. It's not just us. As far as business is concerned, I work with the manufacturing sector of the GDP, and that took a hit. We're not making airplanes anymore, haven't been making them for a while. We stopped making cars and all the ancillary business that feed those industries, which is where my product goes. So it dropped off, I would say, close to 30%. But we watch very closely our break-even point. We have not had to lay anybody off or curtail any of our operations. We're just a little bit of a smaller company, but we are still able to stay quite viable. So in that sense, I consider myself, blessed. We are quite lucky. We watch our sales every day. I'm seeing things starting to kind of turn around a little bit, and I mean that very loosely, but there are some upswings that I hadn't seen before in my market. So all in all, I haven't got sick yet. My daughter did get sick. She got tested for the antibodies. She came back negative. Her husband also got sick. He got tested for the antibodies and he came back positive. So go figure that one. I think the testing procedures have got a little bit.
And they're together all the time. Obviously.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So my sense is she's positive, just wasn't picked up on the test.
Bob, over the years, we've talked a lot about either directly or indirectly about leadership. And I even had you come and speak to my staff about leadership. Has these times taught you anything about yourself or about people that you know well, that you rely on?
That's an interesting point. In the beginning, I have to tell you just about myself, I really, even though I was able to work remotely, as I told you, I went into the office every day because I just, I'm an old workhorse. It's what I did. I could work from home. I go to the office, do pretty much the same thing. So staying home was going to be a bit of a challenge. And initially, I really struggled for things to do, but I've kind of acclimated to the new cadence. So I'm much more flexible than I thought I was. As far as people that I work with, friends, that's a tough question. Everybody seems to be frustrated, but yet willing to step out. I have a number of Zoom conferences a day with friends, with family, with work. And honestly, I can tell you, there's another point that has surfaced that I think is quite positive. I have gotten calls from people, yourself being one of them, that I haven't spoke to in a while, and we just run our parallel lives, and all of a sudden there's a call, and hey, how you doing? How are things going? How is this containment treating you? I've reached out and made those calls. So even though my physical world is substantially smaller, my connected world, I think, has gotten a little bit bigger. It's kind of ironic, but so
Um,
I'm looking forward to getting back out into the big world. I can tell you that, though.
yeah. And speaking about leadership, have you consciously done anything different? Either, now I'll let you branch off, either in, we lead by example, we lead in our personal lives, we lead in our business lives, and in your case, and in my case, in our philanthropic work. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about anything that I know you chair the board of Covenant House, New Jersey.
Correct.
Correct. So that's a big responsibility, and it's an amazing mission that they serve and they provide. But I know you're also involved in your church and diocesan work, also at the hospital. Talk to me about how they've responded to you, how you have been required to deal with them. Anything come to mind?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. First of all, let's go to Covenant House, which is my biggest involvement. Dealing with the executive director there, Jim White, we have made the conscious effort to have a number of presentations to the board and to selected staff, things that we would not have done except through emails, maybe a few phone calls. In fact, I'm having one tonight at 4:30, which kind of gives it a state of the operation and what's going on with our staff, with our kids, and obviously with development. With my church, Bob Stagg, who also sits on my board at Covenant House, we have had, we enjoy Sunday Mass that's being recorded, that presentation. And we are in constant contact with him through emails. We have a 6 a.m. group of men that meet. And here's an interesting point, a 6 a.m. group of men that meet, and we talk about our spirituality, we talk about our lives, we talk about our challenges and our successes. And typically we had about 30 men that would come together, would actually physically show up at the church at 6 o'clock in the morning and kind of share our stories. Now we get almost 50 guys, because the guys that moved away, they're in North Carolina, that are in Florida, that are in the Adirondacks, that are out west, can now join the group because they just have to dial in. So that part of our world has gotten quite a bit bigger. But as far as a leadership role, I am very attuned to making sure communication does not break down. So I talk to my managers on a daily basis. I talk to my business partner every day, something we didn't do before, because we were in the same office, but now I make that phone call every day and not only ask how he's doing, what's going on, but we talk about business issues, capital allocations, break-even points, and the things that we're monitoring closely. And the same thing with Covenant House. I've encouraged Jim to send out regular notices, and now these meetings. Now I've got a board meeting coming up, which is most assuredly going to be done via Zoom. The one point about that is my board is comprised of a lot of folks that are quite busy, got a lot on their plate, but because of the current situation, most of them are available to log on for a couple of hours. So I'm anticipating much greater response from or attendance on the board meeting. So in a lot of ways, I'm finding it easier to get people's attention. And as a leader, I've got to keep them focused on where we want to go and what we need to do.
Yeah. So we have been very fortunate in that most of our clients, probably not most, all of our clients have remained with us and continuing to work with us. There have been a few where they've been required to to close their operation. I'll give you an example. We're working with the Fort Lee Library. The Fort Lee Library had to close down completely. So the campaign we're doing there has been put on a brief hold until they're physically opened up. So those are some of the things that we've been dealing with. The questions that I'm getting, and I want you to speak to this, I want your opinion, but the question that I'm getting is when an institution has needs and they have relationships with people that have been a significant part of their philanthropy. And I know you have been with some of the organizations that you're close to. We've been talking about how do you approach them at this point, given the way COVID-19 has impacted the finances of the organization. And what we talk about is to begin the conversation and obviously check in with the person, see how they're doing, but then almost ask permission. I would be like, Bobby, are you open to a conversation about some of the financial needs that we're faced with? Has that happened to you? Have you been approached by some of the charities that you're close with, and have they asked you to consider stepping up at this point?
Yes, absolutely. They explain their issues as far as typically developmental dollars that are not coming in, increased expenses with what they have to do, or reduced operations. But let me tell you this, George, what we did at Covenant House, we did it a little bit differently. We knew these were sensitive times. Our expenses had gone up because we're giving our youth advisors more money because they're coming into work every day. And these kids are homeless youth. We don't know where they've been. It's been a bit of a challenge. So, and some of our fundraisers have been curtailed. We have a big fundraiser that's Brody Night of Stars, which is at the NJ PAC. We've got the Sleep Outs, which are people getting together to raise money. And those things have not happened per se. But we made a conscious effort to contact all of our donors, all of our benefactors, all of our supporters, and not to really ask for money, just to give them information. We're calling you. How are you doing? How are things treating you? How's your family? The same, because we care about you. And here's what's happening at Covenant House. We share our challenges, and we also share our successes. We share the bright spots as well. We let them know that we are, we've taken a hit, but we are not completely on our knees, and we are striving forward. We are helping as many kids as we can. And that in itself has generated a fairly robust response. So it wasn't coming there with our hands out, but saying, we care about you and we want you to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so that has been very, very successful for us.
Yeah.
And I would prefer that, because sometimes I get direct ask from charities. And as you know, George, we both get hit a lot with that, and we understand what it's about. But there are times when you just need to say, "Hey, how are you doing?" And here's how we're doing.
Yeah. It's a very, it's clearly such a sensitive issue, and that's why the way we've been addressing it in some, and not all instances, where money, I'll give you one example. We're working with a high school right now in New Jersey, and they're down in terms of their number of students. And the reason they're down is because the families can't afford to send their sons, in this case, to that school. So what they're doing is they're having a push with their major donors to explain the situation and to say that it's a short-term problem that we have to address, and if you're able to help us. So there's a critical nature to that, because they almost can't afford to be down that number of students, because it would really threaten their actual operation, the continuance. So but it's like one size doesn't fit all. There's always extenuating circumstances, but regardless of whether or not you're doing it exactly the way you described, or taking that initial conversation and kind of pivoting into a discussion of finances, the important thing, I think, and the commonality here is that in both cases, you're asking about how that person is doing.
That's correct.
So I think that's important.
But George, one other thing.
Yeah.
We made a conscious effort to increase our development department. So we brought people on, we transferred some duties so that we are able to make more of those calls.
Okay.
So our outreach has been quite extensive with our donor base.
That's great.
So while the asks are kind of hinted at, the number of calls and contacts we've made have increased sharply.
Yeah.
That's our design. And of course, that was also part of the budgetary process that we struggled with, but we knew that we needed to stay in contact with our donors and supporters.
How's presentation doing from a financial stewardship standpoint?
From what I understand, they're holding their own quite well. Luckily, we had redone the church not more than a year ago. And when we did that, we set up the church for audio-visual, I guess, abilities that we didn't have before. So now we are able to videotape services, masses, and those are going out to all the parishioners. I understand that the Easter collection was quite robust. Most of the parishioners understand that, while they're not there, the church needs to move on. So I think, I didn't get the latest financials, but I believe they're really doing quite well. But again, they were well positioned for this, and that they kind of stumbled into it because they had the church set up for this audiovisual, which is now a godsend, literally, and that's worked in our favor.
Have you found yourself being either introspective or philosophical during this time?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Here's what I've discovered. And I think it's important for all of us, but certainly for me. Life can be very busy. Life can get in the way of a lot of things, or your attention to details. But with this quietness, with not having to travel anywhere, with having downtime, with spending more time with my wife, I realized that life can be very full and meaningful without all the busyness, and a lot of stuff that I thought was imperative and now can't happen doesn't seem to matter that much. And I enjoy that quietness. I enjoy the laid back sense of, I'm just going to be, I don't have to be doing. And that has given me a kind of more of a peace of mind. And it also puts a framework on allowing me, as I've tried through the years, to get myself out of my own way so I can do for others, be for others, take care of my needs, certainly, but also to look out for my community, my church, my charities, my friends. It's been a unique time. This is a lesson I would not have learned on my own. I had to be slammed into a room, the door locked, and say, "Okay, you live with yourself for a while and see how that works out for you."
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bob. This has been a pleasure to spend some time with you in this way. And I think, listening to you speak about some of your experiences and some of your attitudes about giving and about leading, I think it's going to help people that will have the opportunity to see this. Please send my best to Carol.
And you to Joanne?
I will. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you in person sooner than later.
Oh yeah, I would enjoy that very much, George. And let's hope that comes our way.
Thanks, Bob. Take care.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye now.